3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
I'm trying some multi-exposure portraits, and they're not terrible, but they're not really that great either.
I think the key is just quantity. 5 of them will suck, and then there will be one kind of special one.
Also trying some slow shutter speeds / shutter dragging / ICM intentional camera movement portraits with similarly mixed results. They're not terrible, but they're kind of not really coming out all that amazing either. But I don't really know what to do to fix the situation, other than move on. Oh, security, thank God. I was just about to vandalize the shit out of this place. I mean, who knows what we're up to over here with this camera. I mean, actually, it's fairly obvious what we're up to.
See what that looks like, shooting through glass. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
But I'm sure it's a problem, somehow, to somebody. I had this idea at breakfast when I was looking through my glass of water that it might be cool to shoot through a drinking glass. And yes, it was. I really liked the results. Kind of reminded me of maybe light leaks on a film camera. So besides the multi-exposure, shutter dragging, shooting through a water glass stuff that I've been doing so far, my plan for this shoot is twofold. The first thing is, as much as possible, I don't include face. Now, if there's a great shot with face, sure, I'm gonna take it. But I'm really gonna try to not include face. Like, what does that even entail, a portrait without a face? Well, she came up with this business of covering her face, and that worked great. Made my job a lot easier, actually, because I was kind of clueless at this point as to how to come up with compositions of a person with no face. Here I just shot her face because that was a gorgeous moment. What a beautiful shot. I really like that. Has nothing to do with the concept, but I don't care. You know, maybe it's just that her face is turned away. You know, maybe the face is there, but it's out of focus. I don't know. Maybe I focus on a hand or something instead. But details, that's a conversation we were having. Details. As a wedding photographer, I'm no stranger to details. I'm constantly photographing little details, hands holding bouquet or whatever. And I have actually made great strides to include this into my portrait photography, but not successfully on a large scale. But actually, weddings are not where the idea comes from. Nature photography, or even street photography. It's like if I'm looking at a tree, a mountain, a building, I feel no pressure to include the very top of the building, the very top of the tree. I don't know why I do feel that pressure when I'm photographing a person. It's like I can leave everything else out, but not the very top. I switched back to doing multi-exposures here, but the multi-exposure shots sucked. Thankfully, my camera also saves the individual shots that make up the multi-exposure image, so I just used those, because they were actually nice headshots. I mean, again, it has nothing to do with the concept, other than maybe the fact that I didn't include her entire face. It was at least an unusual composition of a person's face, so do I get points for that? Well, anyway, these are meant to be multi-exposure, triple exposure shots, and there was no stipulation that I couldn't shoot a face. Again, like, the multi-exposure shots sucked, but the single shot, or shots from which it was composed, looked great. But that was the end of it. I just really was not having luck. That's pretty cool. I'm liking where this is going. Okay, press the shutter button. Coming around to the side kind of ruined it. It was a stronger image before I moved. I'll tell you, I felt slightly embarrassed. I should have just asked, hey, do you mind if I photograph your stomach? I felt slightly weird about it. We talked about details, but I don't know, somehow that maybe seemed exploitative. I should have just asked. I just didn't know how to say those words without sounding like a creep. I think that's why I was just extra slow, because, like, if I perceived any discomfort on her part, I just wouldn't have snapped the photo. I'm just a fucking moron. These are awesome, both with and without her covering her face. They both worked great. But I noticed, or I learned, or I discovered that the drinking glass I'm holding can kind of be used to erase a face. And that's another way in which I can accomplish my mission objective. But I mentioned besides whatever other random techniques, shutter dragging and multi-exposure, I had a twofold concept. One was to avoid shooting the face, but to compensate for that, part two was to shoot the face, but with a macro lens, just details of the face. That first spot, the lighting wasn't great. It was her suggestion that we move out here to softer light, and yeah, I think it gave it a little bit more mood. So I love all the macro shots, and I love all of this series of shots as well with the glass, so I'm just going to intercut between them. I discovered that shooting through the glass directly into a light source is even cooler still. Instead of like distorting her so much, it more just turns the light into a fireworks show. It's cool. Just bends light around, love it. I don't yet own a macro lens in the RF mount, so I switched cameras. I'm shooting on an older DSLR, 5D Mark II, with an EF macro lens. If anything, I think it just contributed to a very filmic vibe. The extra noise, the imperfect focus. I liked it. It was good. Worked out. I did try some extension tubes before the shoot to see if that would be a better way to go, but I thought the quality was unsatisfactory. I don't know, is there such a thing as like a high quality or a low quality extension tube? I tried two and they were very cheap, but I mean, the task of moving the lens forward slightly seems very straightforward. I don't see why I would need to buy a premium product for that. Just decided that the trusty old 5D Mark II and trusty old EF 100mm macro lens would be a better way to go. And I agree with myself. Still loving these shots through the glass, shot toward the light source. And I'm still loving the mood of these macro shots, and that is a gorgeous macro shot of her face. Partially obscured, in fact, so meeting both objectives. Both bizarre, disparate objectives of fixating on the face and avoiding the face at the same time. But I am loving these shots without face or partially obscured face. I really think the less face you show, the more interesting the shot is. I can see myself doing a lot more of this. Is this a concept for a shoot, or is this a glimpse into the direction I'd like to take my photography? Spoiler alert, it's the second one. This has been germinating in the back of my head for quite a while, honestly. I didn't know what was going on with my autofocus here. The box that draws around someone's eye had changed color and was behaving kind of erratically. At some point I'd read the instruction manual for this camera, but evidently I need to read it again, because I just did not know what was going on. My settings all looked correct. The images seemed to be coming out sharp, so I just didn't worry about it. I'll figure it out later, I guess. Normally I don't like this kind of flat, dreary lighting for portraits, but God, it really worked out well. I was very thankful that she had an opinion and shared it, made a suggestion. It was a good one. Turns out she's a photographer too, I learned. I don't really care for this shot that much. Probably because I shot it with a telephoto lens. Just kind of sucks the character out of it. Cool idea with the fingers. I couldn't fit them in the frame, but I ended up with a gorgeous face shot anyway. So those fingers helped get us into position, so it all worked out. I try the belly shot again, but I do it with a telephoto lens. And telephoto lenses just are not great for shooting details. It's fine. It's about as good as that first one. And then security paid us another visit. I really can't imagine what we're doing that could be such a problem. It's funny, recently I made a comment how I never get hassled in Albuquerque when I'm out shooting. Lately that's been changing. I don't know. I've actually been getting approached by security quite a bit lately. That's really disappointing. It was really one of the only things I liked about living in Albuquerque, is that I generally get hassled a lot when I'm shooting in other places, but not here. I guess Albuquerque is really going for that perfect record of being the worst place in the world. I kid. But it does suck here, legitimately, in a lot of ways. The multiple exposure shots, I should have constructed them from images that look very different rather than ones that were so similar. I don't like the idea of doing it after the fact. I like to get that kind of stuff right in camera, or not get it right, and then not use it. Try again next time. The shots with movement, is it that she should have been moving more rather than me or the camera? Maybe, I don't know. We did try it both ways. But I don't really think that was the issue. I'm thinking that it would have worked better with a high contrast lighting situation. Far too mid-tony mine were. And shooting through a water glass worked really well. It's pretty interesting the way it distorts, erases a face. But it especially comes alive when used in a very backlit scenario. Then it becomes more of a refractor of light. And speaking of erasing a face, setting for myself as a goal to exclude face, at least in its entirety. Partial face was acceptable, but this forces me to look elsewhere for something to lock onto, or to find something upon which to base my compositions, and that's a huge help. I think that resulted in some of the best shots today. This is a cool shot. This series is very cool, and no tricks. Well, at least in that first one. I guess technically, the way I'm cropping out. Nah, that's pretty straightforward as well. It's just, I think it's down to really cool posing. She may have made my concept look better than it had any right to look. But people hiring me to photograph them, one would assume, will definitely want to see their face. So the macro lens, super tight compositions, that can help to alleviate that problem. Hey, that one worked. I think I was getting a lot more comfortable with all this by this point and getting into a groove. But anyway, clients wanting to see their own face and grabbing those shots with a macro lens, that was my idea for addressing that issue. But doing so with a sense of style, something a little more interesting than my typical headshots. Because damn, my tiresome bullshit just isn't going to cut it anymore. I mean, it probably would, actually, in terms of my old tired ideas might still be new to a client, but I just can't do it anymore without being disgusted with myself. I feel so free when I'm just out on a photo walk, but when I'm doing portraits, I feel just so incredibly restrained, locked down. So this is my effort to break out of those restraints. But it shouldn't be this hard, it really shouldn't. This is years in the making. This thing about not including face in a big portion of the images, I've literally been talking about it for minimally a year and a half. I'd say longer though. The fact that it's taken me this long to actually begin to implement really demonstrates how inflexible I've become. Not good. But you know, sometimes my ideas don't turn out so great. Most times, honestly. This one though, this thought that portraits could maybe become more interesting by showing less face. This one was unusually successful. I came up with this idea, as people generally do when generating ideas, in the abstract. But I mean, I didn't steal this idea from somewhere. That's the distinction I'm making. I didn't know that it would work. I never steal ideas, though. I always attempt to self-generate ideas. That's what makes any creative endeavor fun. Because otherwise it's not a creative endeavor if you're not, you know, creating the ideas. But the negative side of that is that most of those self-generated ideas are actually garbage and you don't know until you try. But that too, honestly, is the fun, the entire point of doing something creative. But this idea has been gnawing away at me ever since I started doing landscapes and whatnot. And it took an unacceptable amount of time to actually begin executing on it. Now, regarding self-generating ideas, there's of course a case to be made that every idea is already out there and everything kind of looks like something else. Fine, fair enough. That's not remotely what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, full-on wanton plagiarism. Nice. I'm really getting better at those belly shots. I brought a light with me today, even though it was a sunny day. I didn't use it, even though it's no longer sunny anymore. Didn't fire it one single time. But that's another change I'm making, because I hate flat light. Usually, I liked it for some of the stuff we did today, but generally speaking, I dislike it. Oh, but I have a closet full of lights. I just didn't bring any today, you see. And that's awesome. That's great. I'm really glad I stuck with it. If I were to post these or do something with them, that would have to be among the ones I post. Really love that one. That's exciting. So to be at a shoot and not like what I'm getting because of the light, because I was too lazy to bring one along with me, that's really not cool. So every portrait session from now on, I not only bring a light along, I set it up first thing. And if at any point I need it, oh, looky over there it is, right next to me. Because I know that if I don't actually set it up when I first arrive, when the time comes and I need it, I'll be too lazy to go back to the car. Same problem, all over again. So that's been my plan today and will continue to be my plan going forward. And you know, I'm gonna get super bloody honest. I might be a nutcase, but even though I have a lot of positive feelings about this shoot, I'm gonna say 49% positive. 51% I think I fucked it up. I assume every shoot I've ever done has ultimately been a disappointment to my client, and this is no exception. She said she liked him, but I'm thinking, yeah, right, sure you did. I'm tired of disappointing people. And it's tiresome to go through life that way. Makes it difficult to be a productive member of society and earn a living with my camera. But somehow I occasionally manage. But truly, and I can rarely say this, there are some shots we got today that I genuinely love. And that's kind of a big deal for me. It's a victory. It's as positive as I'm capable of feeling towards something I've done.